The rain fell in soft sheets over the quiet village as Alara sat by the window, her trembling hands clutching a small piece of cloth, once meant for the baby she never got to hold. Her tears mixed with the raindrops on the glass as her mother's voice echoed in her mind, calling her cursed, barren, unworthy of a husband. She had prayed, cried, and begged for love, but fate had other plans. The night her parents decided to sell her to an old merchant, something inside her broke. She wasn't just losing her home, she was losing her dignity. As the merchant's cart rattled down the muddy road, Alara stared at the dark forest ahead, her heart pounding with fear. She didn't know where they were taking her, but she knew she couldn't stay. When the cart stopped to rest near a logging camp, she seized the moment, slipping away into the shadows of the pine trees, her bare feet cold against the wet ground. The forest whispered around her, branches cracking, wind moaning, heart racing. Exhausted and starving, she wandered until her legs gave out beside a small cabin glowing faintly in the dark. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the sound of children's laughter drifted through the air. For a moment, it hurt, reminding her of the life she'd never have. Then the door opened, and a tall, rugged man stepped out, holding an axe in one hand and a lantern in the other. His eyes softened the moment they met hers. "You look lost," he said quietly. "Come inside before the cold takes you." Alara hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, but his voice wasn't like the others she'd known. It carried warmth, not pity. She followed him in, trembling from the cold. The cabin smelled of pinewood and bread, the walls lined with handmade toys. 4 little faces peeked from behind a wooden table, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Children," the man said gently, "we have a guest tonight." Inside, the heat from the fireplace thawed the frost from her heart. The man introduced himself as Rowan, a lumberjack who lived alone with his 4 children after losing his wife 3 winters ago. His voice cracked when he spoke of her, and for the first time in years, Alara saw not pity, but shared pain. She didn't tell him about being sold, not yet. She just said she had nowhere to go. He nodded, as if he understood that silence sometimes carried stories too heavy to share. Over the next few days, she helped where she could, baking bread, mending torn shirts, braiding the little girl's hair. The children took to her instantly, laughing when she sang softly by the fire. Rowan watched quietly, his heart stirring with emotions he thought had died long ago. But whispers began spreading in the nearby village, a strange woman living with the widowed lumberjack. Some said she was cursed, others said she was dangerous. One evening, as Rowan returned from the forest, he found Alara standing by the window, tears streaming down her face. "They're talking about me," she whispered. "If they find out the truth, they'll make you send me away." He stepped closer, his rough hand resting gently on her shoulder. "I don't care what they say," he told her firmly. "You've brought laughter back into this home. That's all that matters." His words melted something deep inside her. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a burden or a failure, but as someone who belonged. Yet the peace didn't last. One stormy night, a carriage arrived, its wheels sinking into the mud outside the cabin. A man stepped out, the merchant she'd escaped from. His furious voice shattered the quiet. "That woman is mine. She was sold to me." The children screamed, clinging to Alara's skirt. Rowan stepped between them and the man, his axe glinting in the firelight. "You'll leave," he growled, "before you lose more than your pride." The merchant sneered, waving a crumpled paper. "She's worthless, barren, and yours if you want her, but she belongs to me by right." Rowan's grip tightened, but before he could speak, Alara stepped forward, trembling. "I may not be able to bear children," she said, her voice shaking, "but that doesn't make me anyone's property." Her courage stunned them both. "These children," she continued, looking at Rowan's little ones, "already have a mother in their hearts, and I will not let you take that from them." Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the thunder outside. Rowan looked at her with pride, realizing how strong she truly was. The merchant backed away, muttering threats, but he knew he had lost. Rowan shut the door behind him, his chest rising with relief. Alara sank to her knees, sobbing as the tension broke. He knelt beside her, lifting her chin. "You don't need to prove anything to anyone," he whispered. "You've given my children love. You've given me hope." That night, as the fire crackled, Rowan tucked the children into bed and turned to find Alara watching him quietly. The storm had passed, but something softer filled the air, a calm, a promise. "Stay," he said simply. "Not because you need shelter. Because this is your home now." Tears shimmered in her eyes as she nodded. For the first time in her life, the word home didn't feel like a dream. Morning sunlight spilled through the cabin windows, painting everything in gold. Alara woke to the sound of the children's laughter, their tiny footsteps pattering across the wooden floor. She smiled softly, something she hadn't done in years. Life with Rowan and the children felt like a dream she was afraid to wake from. But beneath the warmth of this new home, a quiet fear lingered. She knew people in the village still whispered about her, waiting for a chance to break what little happiness she had found. As days turned into weeks, Rowan's lumber business began to struggle. The merchant she had escaped from had spread rumors that he was harboring a cursed woman, driving customers away. One afternoon, Rowan came home with tired eyes and calloused hands. "The mill won't take my wood anymore," he said quietly. Alara's heart sank. She blamed herself, believing she had brought misfortune upon him. "Maybe I should leave," she whispered. Rowan's jaw tightened. "You're not leaving. We'll face this together." Determined to help, Alara walked to the village market the next morning, her heart pounding with courage. She set up a small stall selling hand-woven blankets and toys she had made for the children. At first, no one came near. Then an old woman approached, curious about the intricate stitching. "You made these?" she asked. Alara nodded nervously. The woman bought one, then two, and by sunset, her basket was empty. Word spread about her craftsmanship. The same villagers who once shunned her now lined up to buy her work. Rowan watched from a distance, pride swelling in his chest. He saw how Alara's kindness softened even the hardest hearts. Her laughter, once fragile, now carried through the village square. Still, not everyone was ready to forgive. One evening, a group of men confronted Rowan outside the tavern. "That woman's cursed," one spat. "If you don't send her away, you'll lose everything." Rowan's eyes blazed. "She's my family," he said. "And I'd rather lose the world than lose her." That night, Alara found him sitting silently by the fire, his knuckles bruised. She knelt beside him, tears welling in her eyes. "Why do you fight for me?" she asked softly. Rowan looked at her, his voice low. "Because when you came here, this house stopped feeling empty. Because my children smile again. Because you made me believe in tomorrow." His confession broke the last wall between them. Alara reached for his hand, their silence filled with all the words they didn't need to say. Winter came early that year. The forest turned white, and the cabin was wrapped in snow. But inside, warmth bloomed. The children decorated the old pine tree while Alara baked bread, her laughter mingling with the crackle of the fire. Rowan stood watching her, realizing how love had quietly rooted itself in the small, ordinary moments. On Christmas Eve, he placed a carved wooden ring in her hand. "You gave us a family," he said. "Will you stay, not as a guest, but as my wife?" Her breath caught, tears glistening on her lashes. "But what will people say?" she whispered. Rowan smiled softly. "Let them talk. They don't know what love looks like." The children cheered, wrapping their arms around them both, and for the first time, Alara felt whole. No papers, no whispers, no cruel words could take that away. She wasn't the woman who was sold anymore, she was the woman who was chosen. Months passed, and spring painted the forest green again. Alara's little business grew, her designs known far beyond the village. Families traveled miles to buy her blankets, each one stitched with a hidden heart. The villagers who once mocked her now greeted her with respect. Rowan's lumber trade thrived again, and together, they built a life that no storm could shake. But one morning, fate offered her a miracle she never dared dream of. Alara fainted while tending the garden, and when the village doctor visited, he smiled knowingly. "You're with child," he said gently. The world blurred around her. She couldn't believe it. She had been told her womb was barren, her soul cursed, but now, life was growing inside her. When Rowan heard the news, he lifted her in his arms, laughing and crying all at once. The months that followed were filled with joy. The children doted on her, excited for their new sibling. Rowan built a small cradle by hand, carving the same heart pattern Alara stitched into her quilts. When the baby finally arrived, a healthy little girl with her mother's eyes and father's strength, the cabin overflowed with love and tears. Alara held her daughter close, whispering, "You're proof that love heals everything." Years later, their home was known as the Heart Cabin by travelers who passed through the valley. People said the woman who once was sold for being barren now wove blessings into every thread she touched. And those who met her could feel it, the quiet power of forgiveness and the warmth of a love built not from perfection but from courage. Alara often stood by the window, watching Rowan teach their children how to chop wood, the laughter echoing through the trees. Sometimes, she thought about the night she ran through the forest, cold, scared, alone, and smiled. That broken girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had found her worth in the arms of a man who saw her soul before her scars. The world had once called her cursed. Now, they called her blessed. And as the sun set behind the tall pines, she whispered a prayer of gratitude, for the pain that led her home, for the man who stayed when no one else did, and for the family that proved love could rewrite even the cruelest destiny.